And I'm so excited to have Edward Miskie. He's an author, he's a digital creator, he's a survivor. He's going to talk to us about his new book. Now, your book is totally taking off because it's about your life, it's a true story. So, why don't we talk about the book? What is the name of the book? And tell us a little bit about the background.
Sure. So the book is called Cancer, Musical Theater, and Other Chronic Illnesses. It is what I've been calling a fantasy nonfiction musical theater fever dream about what it's like to be a cancer patient and survivor. I wrote it
Okay.
because I am the sole survivor of a very rare non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It was very aggressive, came on very quickly. And I learned pretty quickly in that I was kind of the only person to really kind of
Okay.
have the protocol that I had, which was terrifying. I mean, that's not something you want to hear. That kind of means that if it comes back, I'm screwed because I'm it, like
How
so
are you
I'm
unique?
the classification of soul survivor for me is that I'm the only person who's had this type of cancer who has lived this long and has not had a reoccurrence.
Wow. So, what do you attribute to that?
I have no idea. I really don't
Okay.
because I mean, I talk a lot about self-sabotage patterns and one like I'm so good at them. And during treatment, I did everything I possibly could to not live. Like I drank my way through chemo. I was like
Wow.
hooking up with indiscriminate people. I was going on vacations that I shouldn't have been going on. And all of this, like with no immune system to speak of. So I did everything possible to make sure I did not survive and yet still did somehow. So I don't know
Wow.
what to attribute it to. The medical team at Sloan Kettering is who I will attribute it to.
Yeah, maybe because you did all the I mean, I'm just thinking, but maybe because you did all those things, you actually built up your immunity because you were doing all this random stuff that caused your body to have to fight certain things. I don't know.
It's possible that I just like tripped a switch somehow and my body
Yeah.
was like, I'll show you.
Yeah, exactly. Don't give up now.
Right.
Wow. So wait, how long ago was this?
My original diagnosis was in November of 2011. And then
Okay.
I was given the you don't have cancer anymore card in October of 2012.
Wow. Okay. And so at that time, did you know that this was a super rare disease, or did you do more research and find out a little bit later?
So I knew kind of right away that it was really rare. Um, I think the what little research I did and stopped because I was like, I don't need to know any of this. It was something around in 2011, there was something like 900 or 1200 cases of it known worldwide.
Wow.
Um, which is super small. Like that's not even like that's jarring. Um, and so after I found that out, I was like, I don't want to learn anymore. I don't need to know.
Yeah.
Because that just was too hard to look at. And my first oncologist let me know about 2 rounds into my chemo that things were not great. Maybe it was 3 rounds that things weren't looking good. It was harder for them than they had anticipated to get rid of this. Nothing was working. And so it was kind of at that point where I was like, oh shit.
Mm.
And kind of, things disintegrated from there and then they got better. But it was pretty early on that I knew that something was up.
Yeah. So, how did you decide to write a book about this? I mean, what inspired the whole book, especially because it's not just about the cancer, it's about musical theater and all this other stuff. Like, how did that tie in?
Well, I mean, I was doing musicals for my entire life. The first time I was in a musical, I was probably 4.
Oh,
No,
wow.
sorry, 4th grade. I have been performing since I was 4, but the first
Okay.
actual like show on a stage musical, book musical that I was in the 4th grade. And it's just kind of always been this through line in my life. And so I of course had to naturally pepper that into the book. Why I wanted to write it, I felt super displaced after I was told that I was cancer free. And I think we all have this misconception that, like, when you're told you're cancer free, all of a sudden it's like, yay, big party and go back to your life the way it was before. And you don't, and you can't, and you
Interesting.
shouldn't. Um, and I didn't know how to deal with that or really articulate it at the time. Talking about it over the last decade or so, certainly has made it easier to do because now I know how to say, I was having an existential crisis because the life I was experiencing post-cancer was nothing like the one that was pre-cancer. And
Right.
I kind of decided to write it because I started meeting other people who felt and articulated the same kind of feeling after their cancer experience. And it was
Wow.
just like, this is a thing that no one is talking about. I'm going to write the book.
Thank you. Yeah, because when I found that once you start talking about anything, any type of topic, especially things that people don't like to talk about, like cancer or something that has to do with the body or whatever, you start realizing that other people have the same opinions or same feelings, and it needs to be out there. It needs to be told. It's like pregnancy. Everyone's like, it's so beautiful. You give birth and it's so beautiful, but they don't tell you all the stuff that happens in the room when you're giving the birth. So I totally get it that it's better to be honest about those situations.
100%. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that because one of the comparisons that I make in the book is to Jenny McCarthy's book that she wrote
Okay.
in the late 90s about giving birth. And I think it was called
Oh,
Poop on the Table, or it was
oh
some,
God.
one of the chapters was called
I
Poop on
believe
the
it.
Table. And
Yeah.
it talks about how when you're giving birth, oftentimes you will poop on the table. And it was so
Mhm.
shocking because up until that point, no one had talked about it.
Right.
And so many of the things that I cover in my book, I was unaware of anyone having talked about before. Like there's basically no context or conversation around, you know, dating or having sex as a cancer patient. None.
Mm.
And why
Yeah.
would there be? Because that you become this sterile, inhuman patient while you are doing that. So it's
Doing that.
like, like I think your needs and your wants are kind of negated because it's assumed that your main focus is like just to get through this and live. And whereas that is true, it is also true that I had a boyfriend who broke up with me during that period of time. I was still trying to like feel pretty and have sex with people that I should not have been having sex with.
Yeah.
But, and like drinking my way through it, like I said. So it's still that grasping at straws of still being a human and feeling normal in a very not normal situation that is not talked about, and it's raw and it's kind of dehumanizing, but it's also funny. Like I look back at it now and I can laugh at it. It wasn't funny while it was happening,
Right.
but I can have a good chuckle at some of the dumb shit that I did during that period of time.
Oh my gosh. I literally, as you're saying it, I'm just picturing all these things that you were doing. Like, oh no. But you know what? You lived through it. And it is important that you do talk about those things. And you're right, because if you're with somebody that's sick, that's what you think is important to them. But at the same time, you have needs. You also want to be happy. You also want to feel loved and pretty and all those things too. So I totally can understand how other people can't understand it. So it's good that you're putting it out there because I think it just gives a different perspective on if that was happening with somebody right now.
Yeah, and it very much comes down to like when you ask someone what they want, it's never the first thing that they say, ever. Like if I
Hmm.
if I were to ask like random person on the street right now, what do you want? They'd be like money. And it's
Yeah.
like no, that's not what you want. Like yes, that might be the vehicle to which you get what you want, but that is not
Right.
what you want. And
Interesting.
it's the same with being a cancer patient too. Like, it's perceived that what they want is to just live. And whereas that is true, there's more to it than that because we're never just one thing.
So this is super interesting. And I know you've been on the news and you're growing. Are you going on a book tour? What are your plans with the book right now?
So I'm kind of on a book tour. I'm calling it a book tour at least.
Okay.
I've been kind of a podcast tour. I had, I think, over a dozen interviews that I've done between January. I mean, really just the first 2 weeks of January, I had about a dozen interviews. And between there and now, I've probably had about a dozen more, and I have maybe
Wow.
15 booked between now and the end of March.
Oh my
So
gosh.
this is like my digital book tour. I do have a couple really big things coming down the pike that I can't tell you about just
Oh
yet.
no. I was hoping you could.
I know. Well, it depends on when this comes out. So I'll ask when is this coming out?
Well, I was gonna post it probably by next week, but I mean, do you think it'll
Okay, then
be
then I can't tell you.
okay? But you tell
At
me. If you
least,
tell me now, I'll do whatever you want. I don't care.
yeah,
Tell me. I'll post it in
I'll
March.
yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, the timeline on it is kind of
Oh,
murky.
that's
I will tell you offline just to be safe.
okay. Fine.
We can add it
I
to
like
the
that.
episode notes. Yeah.
Okay.
But beyond all of the podcast interviews, and new segments that have happened and may be coming up, I am adapting the book into a TV series that is going to be a musical.
Oh my God, that's so awesome.
I'm
Are
so
you kidding
excited.
me? So
So very
great.
similar. Thank you. So very similar to like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend or Zoe's Extended Playlist or Glee, even maybe not that bad, but it's going to fall into that kind of category of dark humor with musical theater. Very much how like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend was really about mental health, but it was
Mm,
funny. And
yeah.
Zoe's was about grief, but it was funny. So this is going to be about cancer, but it will be funny.
Wow, that is so awesome. I'm really happy for you, especially you're based out of New York. You're right near Broadway. Do you have intentions of bringing it to Broadway?
You know, I was thinking about that the other day. And I was having a very polarizing conversation with a very good friend of mine who's a Broadway producer about how there's no money in commercial theater, which I don't believe at all. I mean, it costs how many millions of dollars to put up a show on Broadway? Like there's
Thank
money there.
you.
Like
I
whatever.
hate when people say there's
Um
no budget, and I'm like, you're a huge conglomerate. Like, what do you mean
right.
there's no budget? Like,
That's
ugh,
my
I
favorite
hate it.
thing. That's my favorite thing to rage against right now. Like, oh, we can't afford it. There's no money. Okay, who's paying you? Let's talk to them.
Thank you.
Right.
Please. I
like
can give you so many
right.
examples, not even
Pay me.
funny.
But the thought I complain about all the time. Do you remember the show Smash?
I used to love that
I
show. Oh my
know season
God.
1 was so good.
Oh my
But so
God.
I
She's so
made the
talented.
assumption, I know, I made the stupid assumption watching season 1. Oh, this is going to end and they're going to put Bombshell on Broadway. And what a brilliant marketing scheme to get everyone who watched the TV show, those who liked it, those who hated it, into a Broadway theater to make that happen. I was like, that's so brilliant. And then it
Yeah.
never happened.
Right. Dumb. So dumb.
And even like, I was in the throes of chemo when that was coming out. And even in chemo brain, I was like, that was a missed opportunity, you idiots.
I
And
know.
so, like, I mean, God love them all. They're so talented. But
Everyone was so talented in that cast. I mean, it was
yeah.
so great. And to
Well, and
memorize the dance moves and the acting and the songs, like that's just
well,
wild.
and on top of that, it's like, and the camera angles and how many
Yes.
shots have you did this take and how many times have you done this? And let's shoot it from behind and let's put the inserts in. And there's just so much more to it than like being on a stage. But
Yeah.
my thought the other day, and who knows if this will happen because it is very heavily parodied, similar to like Schmigadoon or Schmicago that's out now. Um, the thought would be to do season 1 and then put season 1 on a stage somewhere and like see
Mm.
how that goes, but that's 25 steps in the future. It's just what I would love to happen, but check back in a while and we'll see where we're at.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have that future plan and that vision. And then hopefully you can help make it come to life, So
Yeah.
that's what you need.
Yeah. Well,
That's
and I
great.
mean, TV and theater are expensive. So everyone
Yeah.
send me money. Send me money.
Yeah. We'll put your Cash App up there or
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
have
yeah.
people send
Pay
money.
me.
I love it. People do that now, like in all their bios, they have their Cash App link or their
Yeah.
Venmo link. It's like, okay.
I mean, why
Nobody ever
not?
sent me money though.
I know, right? I have friends. I have a friend who just announced an engagement, but for years they were a fitness model, and put one of the things that they said to me at a birthday party that they were at of mine, my birthday party, was the best thing I ever did was put my PayPal in my Instagram.
Wow.
And it was
And
just
people
like people just throw money.
send
Like this
money.
is what I'm saying. Like there's money. Don't tell me there's no budget.
Don't tell.
Why
So
not?
talk
Pay me.
so talk to us about your TikToks and promoting New York City and all your like little vignette videos of things going on. Do people recognize you? Do you still do that?
Yeah, I mean, I still have my TikTok. I have changed directions to be centered more around the book and the things that are
Good.
going on with that. And there was a little bit of an audience drop off because people didn't, some people didn't sign up for that, and that's fine. I did
Yeah.
have someone be like, "Hey, I'm a cancer patient and I don't want to watch this because I signed up for the New York stuff." And
Wow.
I was like, that's totally okay. I mean, please reach out if you need anything, but like you don't have to stay here.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that we forget about social media is that you don't have to stay here.
Mhm.
You
That's what
can
I don't
go.
understand when people have a problem with your content. It's like, well, then don't go to my page.
Right.
Like,
Then don't
why do you
watch it. Like,
like, I
yeah.
mean, it's just dumb. I
Yeah.
don't get
But
it.
I do still I actually got recognized a couple months ago when I was voting in the primary. I
Okay.
went to the voting station near my apartment and this guy was like, dude, you're the guy on TikTok. And I was like, Why,
I
yes, I
know.
am.
I know. Especially in New York, there's so many people and everybody's kind of like somebody. So that's pretty cool when someone
Well, and it's
follows you.
also like no one's paying attention to you ever. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
getting,
It's
yeah, no one cares. No one gives a shit about you. So like walking
yeah.
around and getting recognized is like, so it's like extra special than
It's
if
a
I
big
was like
deal.
in Indiana and someone that's like, of course you recognize me in Indiana, but like,
Yeah, in New
it
York.
felt good.
I always think that, like, when I'm in New York, I'm like, that's why a lot of people are single. This is just my opinion. Is like because nobody ever looks at you. You're just like a thing walking by. Like everybody's just on their mission, and they don't. It's like you're not even seen. That's why I think it's hard for people to meet people, even though
Well, I
there's so
mean,
many people.
right. Well, I mean, it's the loneliest, biggest city in the world, right? But like,
Yes, that's hard.
I've been single for 10 years. And most of that is by choice, right? So I had a boyfriend that was having the fiance conversation with me when I went into chemo.
Yeah.
And when the cancer thing got a little bit too heavy, he bailed. And I found out that he was dating someone else the whole time. And that was scandalous.
What? Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it didn't feel good.
horrible.
So, I mean, I get it in hindsight now. I totally get it because I'm like, I don't know if I'd be able to stick around for that either. Like that's tough. That's a hard situation.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit of peace there, although he can fuck off. But you
I
know,
was gonna say, what happened to him? Did something bad ever happen to him?
yeah,
Karma.
he married a meth head and he's chock full of roids right now. So great for him.
Yeah.
Anyway, he looks whatever, it doesn't matter. I hope you're
Yeah.
listening. I hope you're listening.
What's his name? What's his name?
I won't say it, but
Anyway.
his sister follows me on Instagram and she sees stuff like this. So she's
Okay.
lovely.
Okay.
Props to her
Awesome.
if you're listening, girl.
Props to the sister. Oh my
But
God.
yeah, I mean, I've been single for 10 years, and a lot of that is by choice because the people that I was going on dates with were just so utterly unimpressive. And
Mm.
I don't want to say that in the sense that like I'm this amazing creature and you have to live up to my standards. This was like bare minimum.
Hmm.
Like you see on Instagram and social media, like these fucking guys that are like in their gray sweatpants and their little tank tops, and they're just like looking at the camera like,
Yeah.
and they have like 60,000 views, and it's like you are doing absolutely
I know.
nothing,
I know.
and we are rewarding mediocrity, like not even
You're so
mediocrity,
right.
with metrics. It's so dumb. And so I think the presumption, and I don't think I've ever made this about myself, but I'm about to be called out by people who have gone on dates with me, but I don't think I've ever made this assumption about myself that like I didn't have to do anything to impress anyone. Like
You were just you.
I try, like I
Mhm.
try to be a good person. I try to go out of my way to make the person I'm with happy in whatever
Mhm.
context that means, but like I just find going out on dates, everyone just wants to like do nothing and expect results. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, like you're not going to have a long-term boyfriend if you're just sitting here like talking about work. Like, yes, I want to know what you do, but like, I don't care.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's also a generational thing too. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but I feel like millennial and younger people, they just don't have that common sense of like everything to them is just so different. Like they don't show up to work. They don't, it's your
I
fault
don't,
if something happens to them. It's just,
I mean, I don't think that's true. I think millennials grew up in a weird time because like we remember before the internet.
yeah.
We remember what it was like to go out and play outside and just have to
Yeah.
be home by the time the sun went down.
Yeah,
You
that's
know, we
exactly it.
remember we remember like playing with toys in the house because there were no screens. Like you had a
Yes.
TV and you were allowed to watch an hour of that a day. Like that's
I
we
remember taking my phone cord and going to talk to my boyfriend in
right
the
in
other
my
room with
room,
like,
right,
like with the
and like
phone. Like,
smashing the cord between the
yeah,
doors so that it would
yeah,
stay. Yeah, I mean
yeah.
that's what millennials for the most part remember.
Mhm.
And we've had to straddle this line of the economy going to shit and a number of times, and the innovation of the internet and social media. And so I think millennials are amazing because we have the best
Okay.
of both worlds. We have created the gig economy. We have created work from home. We have created most of the industry that you see now. The tech industry would not exist without millennials. What
Mm.
you do and what I do would not exist without millennials. You would not have a
Yeah.
job. You would be working in an office somewhere wanting to blow your brains out if
Oh
it were
God.
not for millennials, because we
Right.
created that. The
That's a
gig
great perspective.
economy, the gig economy exists because of us. Now, below us, Gen Z, they have it a little bit easier because they are existing in a gig economy where that is an option for them. Where for us, we had to create it because there were no other options.
Right.
You know, the economy crashed, the housing market went to shit, and we had to figure it out. It's figured out for them. However, they are now being faced with catastrophe after catastrophe after catastrophe, after crisis, after political drama, after everything else, and are expected to show up and work in the same capacity that we did in the generations before us did. And they don't want to. And I don't blame them. I don't want to.
I know, right.
There is nothing about looking around here that I'm like, yeah, I want to continue working 90 hours a week for minimum wage. That sounds great. I'm going to span that across 3 jobs and I can't wait. There's nothing about that. And maybe part of that is like the cancer survivor in me, where I'm like, life's worth more than this. Let's figure something else out. But, you know, looking at it from the perspective of like, yeah, like, let's face it, things are not working. And let's, like, the growing pains of trying to figure out something that will, of course, is going to cause some kind of tension.
Yeah.
But, you know, the idea that nobody wants to work, we just don't want to work according to Gen X or according to the generations before them, because that worked for them. It's no longer working. That system is gone. And we need to figure out something else that will help us live into retirement and not work until we drop dead on some kind of, like, you know, assembly line. Like, nobody wants that. So I think there's a lot of innovation going on with TikTok right now and within tech world that is going to really just change the game. And people inherently don't want change. And so, of course, they're going to be resistant to it. But that doesn't necessarily translate, for me at least, into I don't want to work. I just don't want to work how you're asking me to.
Interesting. I like that perspective. That's great. I'm going to think of it differently now. I know. So what would you like to impart, you know, in our closing? What would you like to impart for somebody who might be going through cancer right now, or any type of advice you would give to someone who went through something and wants to talk about it and write a book? What advice can you give?
In the conversation of wanting to write a book, I would say just open up a Word document and let your brain puke all over the page. It doesn't matter if it makes sense or anything. I mean, you should have seen this thing before edits. Like, it was like 150,000 words long, and like, that's too long.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, when I was born and grew up and what, and like, no one cares. Like
Yeah.
you'll figure out how to, like, you know, kill your darlings when you're editing. But while you're writing, just put everything down. Every idea can turn into something, and just do it. Get out of your way and just let your brain talk to your fingers and type. In regards to someone who's going through cancer right now, I mean, that is so different for every single person that I don't think it's possible to really say definitively this will work for all of you. What I can say is that, as dire as your circumstances may feel right now, you have a choice and you have control over how you feel about it. And so you get to wake up every morning and decide, am I going to lay here and feel sorry for myself? Or am I going to go do something, whether that's, you know, take a lap around the hospital, you know, which was a favorite sport of mine. Or, like, you know, call a friend or talk to someone or go to a movie, or, you know, push the limits of your capabilities in order to make yourself feel good about you. Because if the baseline is you're a cancer patient and everything's terrible, everything that's not that is going to be uphill.
Yeah.
So climb up the hill. It's difficult, but you have to push yourself and just decide to make the best of it.
And don't be like you, where
And
you went
don't
out
be
and
like
partied.
me. Don't do what I did.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly. Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, exactly. So where can we find your book? Is it on audio, or is it, you know, can you order it online?
Audiobook is being worked on right now. I'm reading it myself, and it turns out that if you put a screen and a microphone in front of me, I'm illiterate. So it's proving to be much harder than I thought it was going to be. I wanted it to be done by Christmas, and then I wanted it to be done by Valentine's Day, and we're just not there yet.
Okay.
It's coming. But otherwise, you can find the book on Barnes & Noble, on Waterstones, on Walmart even. It's on Booktopia, on Indigo. Apple Books. It's basically there's like 30 or so different retailers that it's at right now.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Edward, thank you so much for joining us. And I hope that everybody goes out and buys your book and listens to your story. And I can't wait to see what the future holds for you. So thank you.
Thank you. Me too.